Hello Dogs fans, I'm Jacob and welcome to another massive episode of After the Dogs Roar for season 2016. Now this episode is for after round 20 and this episode will include an overview of the game that was played on Saturday night between North Melbourne at Etihad Stadium. A crucial match. Did we win? Did we lose? I'll tell you about that as well as my thoughts on the game in the overview coming up straight up in this episode. Now also coming up is my votes for the After the Dogs Roar Best and Fairest Award. I'll be giving you my 3, 2 and 1 votes. The leaderboard has really heated up. Of course, I'm not going to show you the leaderboard until the end of round 23, but I can tell you now there's some big changes to the leaderboard since I last showed you. Now also coming up is a stats wrap up as we normally do on After the Dogs Roar each and every week. Includes the leading goal kickers, disposals, marks and tackles. I'll be doing an overview of our VFL sides clash with our former reserves team, Williamstown, in round 18 at Burbank Oval. It was a close one, so I'm looking forward to reviewing that VFL clash. The Bevis burning question coming up, as well as a preview to the game against Collingwood in round 21, and then we'll finish off the show with the 5 fan questions. So let's get straight into the show with an overview of the game v the Kangas. On Saturday night in round 20 at our home ground of Etihad Stadium, we were taking on North Melbourne in our second clash against the Kangaroos this season. Of course, we met back in round 6, our first Friday night game for such a long time, and the Kangas beat us convincingly in the end because we didn't score in the last quarter, and that's something we really struggled to do against North Melbourne in that round 6 clash. So it was very crucial that we came into this game being able to score efficiently and also be able to run and carry the ball like we've showed in various stages this year. So it was a massive game. Of course, a win here for us would mean that we have 100% booked a place in the top 8. If we were to lose this game, if we lost this game, then we would of course not be guaranteed a top 8 spot until the end of round 23, if you know what I mean. So anyway, let's get straight into the game. It was an interesting start. In fact, North Melbourne had the lead at quarter time in what was a very close tussle in the first quarter. They led by 4 points. It was 14-10 with North Melbourne leading, like I mentioned. The second quarter, though, we were able to blow out to a lead, and geez, there was some great stars playing some beautiful roles in this game. Of course, Bontempelli, Boyd, Daniels, Hunter, just to name a few. Of course, Hunter has been sensational throughout the year. Really good second quarter. We're able to get ourselves into about a 2-goal lead at half time, which was a very good lead by us. By the way, a very low scoring game in the first half. 4-5 the Western Bulldogs to North Melbourne 2-4. It was a bit low scoring. In fact, it wasn't quite as entertaining as some games this season, but it was very close, and yeah, it was very close, and it was very low scoring, as I mentioned. So half time we had the lead. The second half I thought was brilliant. We really did sort of take the game away from North Melbourne in the second half. I was quite confident going into the last quarter that we were going to hold on and win. Of course, Ben Brown going off with an injury was one of those crucial injuries to North Melbourne. So they were really lacking some height up in that forward line, which gave us a bit of an advantage to be able to run and carry it into the forward line and be able to score, especially in this low-scoring affair, even though we didn't get a lot of opportunities to score. But we did miss a few sitters, but I tell you what, the third quarter really did set us up for the fourth quarter, and we won, I thought, convincingly in the end. I had no doubts in the fourth quarter that we weren't going to win this game because we just got in such a great position in the third quarter. At three-quarter time, we were able to take the game away. The final score, the Dogs, 9-7-61, defeated North Melbourne 7-5-47. Absolutely massive win for us. Of course, we've been struggling the last couple of weeks with losses to St Kilda and Geelong. Of course, injuries playing a big role in them as well. But to be able to put those injuries aside in this game and be able to go out on our home deck and get a win and guarantee us a finals, another finals berth this year is absolutely fantastic. So the goal kickers, all single goal kickers for our side. In fact, all the goal kickers, including the North Melbourne goal kickers, were all single goal kickers. There was no multiple goal kicker in this match. It just describes the match really and how low scoring it was, but how our team were able to collectively contribute throughout the entire game. So the goal kickers, Dixon, Daniel, Bontempelli, Hovat, Johannesson, Hunter, Cordy, Roughhead and Stringer, of course, all getting singles. As I mentioned, and then the best players, Bontempelli, Matthew Boyd, Daniels, Johannesson, Dalehouse, Morris and Hunter, the best players. I basically really agree with that. I thought all those players played a very big role in this win against the Kangaroos. So great win. I have a bit of a feeling that we'll end up finishing fifth still and actually playing North Melbourne in an elimination final at the MCG. I just have that feeling. I might be wrong. I could be wrong. It's probably most likely I will be wrong, but I just have that feeling that we're going to be versing the Kangaroos in the first week of the finals. So it was great to be able to beat them, of course, especially after that round 6 loss to them on that Friday night, you might remember. Okay, time now for my votes for the After the Dogs Raw Best and Fairest Award. Of course, these votes coming out of the round 20 clash v the Kangaroos, of course. So let's get stuck into it. I've given one vote to Matthew Boyd. He was quite good in this game. In fact, he got 22 disposals, 13 kicks, 9 handballs, and ended up having 6 marks, which was sensational. Of course, we know that he from last week he leads our marks as a club. So in the stats wrap up. So of course we know he can mark the ball, but just the way he's been able to contribute and show the leadership on the field really has been superb in the last couple of weeks, and he showed it again against North Melbourne. So he gets 1 vote for me. 2 votes has gone to Jason Johannesson. He has been sensational since returning from that injury. Of course, we know that he kicked a stunning winner to win the game for us against the Swans at the SCG in round 15. It was sensational, and since that moment he's been sensational, and he was a really good contributor in this game against North Melbourne. He got the same amount of disposals as Matthew Boyd, except he got 15 kicks, 7 handballs, and he also got 6 marks, the same as Matthew Boyd. He actually got a collective Dream Team score, AFL Fantasy score, of 93. So he had a very good game. He racked up the disposals. He was there when it mattered, and he was able to really contribute well to our win against North Melbourne. So fantastic there by Jason Johannesson. He's been fantastic since he returned, like I mentioned. And then I've had to give the 3 votes to Marcus Bontempelli. He was again sensational in this game. He has been, especially in the back end of the season, really been stepping up to the mark and being at his real personal best. And well, he kicked a goal. He got 19 disposals, 15 kicks, 4 handballs, 8 marks. He was sensational. 118 AFL fantasy points. I tell you what, he's got a lot of 3 votes in the back end of the season so far. So yeah, that's how good he's been in the second half of the season. Okay, let's get straight into a stats wrap up for after round 20, starting with the leading goal kickers. Jake Stringer, he still leads on 36 goals. Of course, kicked a single in the game on Saturday night, so he leads. Tory Dixon, the next best, on 22. Jack Redpath and Marcus Bontempelli are level on 20. You would expect Marcus Bontempelli to go past him, go past Jack Redpath there, and maybe go past Tory Dixon. You never know, although Tory Dixon has been in some good form in the last couple of games, showing some very promising signs. But in 5th, Tom Liberatore rounds out the leading goal kickers on 13. You then have the leading disposals. Lockie Hunter still leads the disposals on 554. Jack McRae in 2nd on 486. Matthew Boyd in 3rd on 468. Marcus Bontempelli there in 4th on 460. And then rounding out the top 5 is Liam Picken on 420. We go to the leading marks. As I mentioned in the votes, Matthew Boyd led the marks last week, and he leads them again this week on 125. Lockie Hunter's not far behind him. In fact, only 4 marks behind him on 121. Easton Wood in third on 95. Dale Morris on 90, and then Biggs on 89. It's fairly close there between third, fourth and fifth, and then of course first and second, it's very close there as well. So the leading tackles to finish off the stats wrap up. Tom Liberatore leads the tackles on 92. Marcus Bontempelli is chasing him. He's in second on 89. Jack McRae not far behind on 86. Luke Dalehouse bit far behind there on 73. Of course, he's come back and made a very good return to the Bulldogs side, as I've been mentioning. And then Liam Picken rounds out the top 5 on 5th with 72 tackles. Can you believe it? Liam Picken's 5th in both the leading disposals and the leading tackles. So there you have it, the stats wrap up for after round 20. And looking at the AFL ladder, we are currently sitting on 7th. We are 4 points ahead of North Melbourne, who we of course beat on Saturday night. We're level on points with the West Coast Eagles, who face a tough task against the GWS Giants. We could possibly move to 6 if we win our game against Collingwood on Friday night. And if things go our way, GWS defeating the Eagles. So you can see there Geelong have Richmond. You'd think they'll probably be able to win that. Of course, the Crows, Swans and Hawthorn in that top 4 there, as well as GWS rounding out the top 4. So I'd have to say, if we can get 5th from here, it's I don't know, we could get top 4. It's still not out of the question. But if we get 5th or 6th, I would be happy with that, of course, because we get a home final. I probably would rather 5th, but yeah, if we get 5th or 6th, then that is good, considering you know, the injuries we've had in the last couple of weeks, of course, and you know, the losses we've had in the last couple of weeks. To be able to redeem ourselves with the next 3 games and win them, we can put ourselves in the best possible spot. So I'm hoping 5th, if not top 4, which is yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be hard to get a top 4 spot, but it's not out of the question. We could still do it, but 5th, I'd be very happy with that. We get, of course, a home elimination final. So the ladder, still very close in the top 8. You'd think the top 8 is all sewed up, and that's the teams that are going through the finals. It's just which position they are in the top 8. Okay, time now to get stuck into our round 18 VFL overview. Footscray v Williamstown. Williamstown are on top of the table. This was always going to be a hard task, especially over there at their home ground of Burbank Oval. Now, of course, like I mentioned last week, Williamstown, our former reserve side. So there's a little bit of a rivalry, I feel, between these two, but at the same time, this was going to be a very crucial clash for our Footscray Bulldogs. We got off to a good start. In fact, we led by 5 points at quarter time. We led by 15 points at half time. We still led in what was a very close battle at 3/4 time, 53-61. I believe Williamstown took the lead at one stage in the 4th quarter, but to our VFL side's credit, we were able to kick back, win the game very closely. We've had a few close ones, but this is by far surely the best close one of the year. Maybe that one against the Casey Scorpions was pretty special, but I tell you what, to go over to Burbank Oval and defeat Williamstown, top of the table Williamstown, by a very small margin, is very, very good from our point of view. The final score, Williamstown 11-11-77, defeated by our Footscray Bulldogs 12-9-81. We are, well, if we can win our last 2 matches, we can put ourselves in a very good position in the VFL finals. The goal kickers for us, we had Hannon, who kicked 4. He had a very good game on the scoreboard. Holton kicked 2. Hamilton, Tavesky, Beckwith, Greenwood, Lynch, Jemison and Adcock kicking singles there. Of course, Adcock and Lynch are real players to look out for in this side, of course, because of their AFL list commitments, of course. And the best players, Russell, Adcock, Hannon, Lynch, Tavesky, Begwith and Barry. Geez, that's a commentator's nightmare, that one, that last name pronunciation, but hopefully I got it right there. So that's the best players there for the Footscray Bulldogs. So great win for us. Let's go to the ladder. So we're currently 6 on the ladder. We are level on points with Port Melbourne and Sandringham That top 4 spot is not out of the question just yet. Of course, Williamstown, we've been able to knock them off the top 4. And in fact, if you have a look there, we've beaten Casey Scorpions and Williamstown, 2 of those top teams in the competition. How impressive is that? So if we finish, even 6th or 5th or 4th, we can really challenge some of those top teams, I believe, anyway, especially with how our VFL side has gone in patches this season. So watch out, our VFL side in red hot form. Now, we have got a bye next week, so our Footscray Bulldogs will go and have a well-deserved rest next week, and we'll be back the week after that in their next VFL clash, which of course I'll mention next week. So that is our VFL overview. Time now to get into the Bevis burning question. Okay, time now for the Bevis burning question. We all know how this segment works, so no need to explain it. I'm going to get stuck into it. Ask the question, is the future bright for Fletcher Roberts, Joel Hamling and Zane Cordy? I tell you what, these 3 men have really come into the side in the second half of the season, in particular Joel Hamling and Zane Cordy in the last couple of weeks. Of course, Fletcher Roberts has been in for most of the season, you would have to say. I actually really think these 3 men have a real bright future at our club and in terms of their playing career. I can see the signs. Now, they're not perfect men just yet. In fact, we see it every week with these 3 men that they do make some clingers, and that's fine. But there's also some very good aspects of their game that they display, whether it's in the VFL or the AFL on the big stage. There's very big signs there to actually suggest that they are going to be 3 players to really watch out in this side. I believe Fletcher Roberts in the last couple of weeks has been getting a bit more confidence by the looks of it. He's been taking on the ball a bit more. He's been putting a lot more pressure on the opposition than what he was. I feel like he's progressing well. I know there was a lot of criticism that he was still in the side. I know one person, I'm not going to name his name, in his selection table each and every week, basically saying out Fletcher Roberts, and he was not the perfect player in the first half of the season. He still isn't, but he's really making that effort to really lift his game. And I believe if he can go back to the drawing board in a pre-season at the end of the year and heading into next year, I feel like he can become a very good defensive player for our club. He's showing the signs. He just needs to upgrade that a little bit more, if you know what I mean. Now, Joel Hamling has been sensational this year in various parts. Mainly a defensive player, but has really taken on a good role of going up forward and really having a crack up forward, which is what I like to see. He's been great, and in fact, looking at the stats, he only had 9 disposals, but he had 7 marks in the game and 7 kicks, as well as 2 handballs in the game against North Melbourne. So I thought he put in a decent effort against North Melbourne. The signs are there, like I said. It's similar to Fletcher Roberts, and of course, if we can get the position right, of course, we know he's a defensive player, but he can also play it forward where we want that preferred position to be. Do we want him to still be in the defence, or, do we want to, make him a full stream forward? So that's something for, obviously Beveridge to work on in the pre-season. Zane Cordy, I think he's come in and done very well. He kicked a goal on the weekend against North Melbourne. Only had the 2 marks, the 7 disposals. He's not one of those players who gets... racks up big disposals. Obviously, he's not a midfielder. He's more of a defensive player. Can also go up forward as well. He was showing signs as well. I think all these 3 players, they don't rack up big disposals, but when they're able to apply that pressure and be effective in a game, they can do that. So I think they have a very good future, a very bright future as men, as football AFL players at the club. I think they're going to be 3 key men we have to watch out for in the next couple of years, because they're the next men coming forward that could really take this club on a next level, of course, along with all the other names as well who are at the club already. Okay, Dogs fans, time to get straight in to our 3rd last home and away game of season 2016. We're back on the Friday night stage. This is our final Friday night game of season 2016 from a home and away point of view. Whether we play a Friday night game in finals is yet to be determined, but we're up against Collingwood at Etihad Stadium. This game starting at 7:50 p.m. as most Friday night games do. It's 7th v 12th. Collingwood quite poor in the end against Richmond last week, although really did get a good win against West Coast just a couple of weeks ago. But they don't play Etihad Stadium very well, and that's something that really will give a lot of confidence and a lot of boosting confidence to all those Dog supporters if you don't have confidence in this game already. And I find that very hard to believe, because everyone should be very confident that we can win this game. We beat them, of course, at the G. I was there at that game in round 10. Of course, it wasn't the most convincing win, but we got there, and we got there in the end. I think this is going to be more of a convincing win, though. I think we're going to play a lot better than that round 10 clash. I honestly think we're going to probably win by about, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 points. I think we can really beat this Collingwood mob, really give them a good loss, and I'm looking forward to this game on Friday night. I'm very keen for it. Of course, we've got 3 winnable games, and this is one of them. So enjoy if you're at the game or sitting at home watching on TV. It is going to be a fantastic game that the Dogs should win pretty comfortably. Okay, time now to get into the 5 fan questions. I picked the best 5 questions each and every week from the Western Bulldogs forum, from you guys who ask me each and every week. Disappointingly, though, we only have 3 questions, which is unfortunate, because I always like to answer 5 questions, but unfortunately I'm going to have to only answer 3. So that's disappointing. Of course, if you're in the Western Bulldogs forum, make sure you look out for that post that I post at the end of each game. It could be the day after a game. So I posted this one on Sunday at about Sunday evening. So normally that will be when I post it. But yeah, disappointingly, I only got 3 questions. But I'll answer all these 3 questions, starting with Matty Lyons, who says, who do we most want to play week 1 of the finals? Well, if you're talking about players for our injury list, as I go through the injury list here, of course, Matthew Suckling is still out. You would very much 100% like him in the squad to play in week 1 of the finals. Of course, he's probably got the most experience out of probably maybe any player really in finals. Of course, there's other players like Morris and so forth who have played in prelims, etc. But Matthew Suckling has played in the last few years in finals for Hawthorn, so he knows what it's like. But Marcus Adams, I'd like there as well. He obviously can provide a good defensive structure in that defence, being able to attack the ball and spoil and be able to take it up to those big men, which is something we need to do in week 1 of the finals, especially if we're coming up against a side who has those big key forwards who we need to tackle. You know, for example, West Coast, if we come up against them, you know, we've got Josh Kennedy there, a couple of others. If, you know, North Melbourne, obviously Ben Brown did get injured, which was a very good plus for us, but of course they still have Drew Petrie and so forth. I think they're hoping to get Jared Waite, so Marcus Adams would be very good for that. It would be great to get Tom Liberatore back by week 1 of the finals. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. In fact, I'm kind of 50% or 40% confident about that. I just find it very hard for him to come back. Tom Campbell, he's another one who you'd like to have in the squad. But I think the most important players I'd like coming back from the injury list to be in the squad for week 1 of the finals would have to be Matthew Suckling, Marcus Adams, and possibly Tom Liberatore. Well, definitely Tom Liberatore if he can come back. And obviously you've got that. Obviously Tom Liberatore as well. Tom Campbell as well there as well. Of course, I've missed out Jack McRae as well. He's someone who could possibly come back, but I'm very sceptical about that. I don't think he can make it back by the week 1 of the finals, but we'll see. But I really would like Suckling, Adams and Liberatore, maybe McRae there in week 1. Would be fantastic. Michael asks, is Hurley the missing piece in our premiership puzzle? I'm glad you asked that question, because it's an interesting one, this one. There's been a lot of speculation throughout the week that Hurley, of course, has been targeted by our club, and so he should. He's a very good player that we should be looking at. Just to give you some of the background, he won he was a nominee for the Rising Star in 2009 and 10. He was last year's best defensive player at Essendon. Of course, he's mainly playing a defensive role, though. He kicked about 24 goals, I think, in a season last year, so he can go up forward and kick goals. But I actually think he would be a very valuable player to our club. I think what we lack sometimes this season is height in that defence. I think at various times we've been able to let players such as Stanley for Geelong. Last Friday night, he kicked 5 on us. We've had a couple of other players be able to kick, big gun players be able to kick, some goals on us, and it's because we've been lacking some height. Fletcher Roberts, not as tall as some of the big gun AFL players in the competition, of course. Marcus Adams is probably the tallest you're going to get in the side, and then obviously Matthew Suckling. He's not that tall, but so he probably lacks a bit of height up in the defence as well. So I think Michael Hurley would fit that bill. I think he'd be a fantastic defence player. Could play up forward in times of a match. Could be similar to Brian Lake. We know that Brian Lake played full back and obviously went up in full forward at crucial times. You might remember those days, of course. Unbelievable. But I think, I'm not sure if he's a missing piece in our premiership. I think he might be. I think he'd be a good, valuable player if he comes to the club next year. I think he'll really make a good contribution. And look, I don't think there's any reason for him not to come here. He needs a fresh start away from the Bombers, of course. All that controversy, I think it's probably ruined his time at Essendon. But that's another story for another day. I think he possibly is the missing piece in our premiership puzzle, I'd say. Red WB asks, which current Bulldog would be most likely to make the Olympics team and in what sport? By the way, I won't harp on too much about the Olympics, but how good is the Olympics this year? In fact, it's always good. No matter what city it's in, it's always good. And it was, I got up at about 3:50 a.m. this morning to watch Catherine Skinner, of course, shoot for gold. Of course, there's some other big highlights for our Australian team at the moment in the Olympics. Of course, the 4x100 freestyle relay team won gold yesterday. Of course, Mark Houghton winning gold as well yesterday. Just to name a few, I'm not going to harp on too much about it because obviously this is not an Olympic show. But to answer your question, Red WB, I'm going to say Jason Johannesson, and I'm going to say 100 metre and 200 metre sprints. I think we've seen in this season how he can run down the wing and be that powerful, speedy player, with the ball, and it's incredible to see. I think he could do the 100 and to maybe do the 200 like Usain Bolt does. It would be interesting to see how Jason Johannesson goes. I reckon if he if he got to the track, sprint like he does in a game, maybe even faster, he would definitely make the Olympics team and be called by the famous Bruce McAvaney, who I'm sure would love to call Jason Johannesson at the games. But of course that will not happen because he's a part of our Western Bulldogs squad and we need him for the finals. So, but definitely Jason Johannesson in the 100 metre and 200 metre sprints in the athletics. So. Good question there by Red WB, by the way. Good to get some Olympic spirit in this show because, of course, the Olympics only comes around every 4 years, and when it does, it's just truly... And that is it for this episode of After the Dogs Roar. Just before I go, I'd like to mention that Josh Dunkley has been nominated the Rising Star of Round 20, so that means that we have 2 nominees in the Rising Star Award for this season in Caleb Daniels and Josh Dunkley. So well done to Josh Dunkley. Had a fantastic game against North Melbourne and was unlucky to miss out on the votes as well as Caleb Daniels. I forgot to mention that as well. And of course, don't forget, if you haven't heard the news, Beveridge did sign on for another 4 years, which is fantastic for our club. It's good to see that our club is putting a lot of faith into Luke Beveridge, and I'm putting a lot of faith into Luke Beveridge because he's taken this team to a whole new level. And we're only just starting basically. The youngness of the group is going to be able to build and build and build. So under Luke Beveridge, that will happen. So very good news there during the week. So until next week's episode of After the Dogs Roar, I'm Jacob. Enjoy Friday night's clash against the Pies, and until next week, bye for now.